Hey, good evening, everybody out there in Facebook land. Paul Sterling here. I'm in the West Coast and Candace is on the East Coast. And today we are going to talk to you about an incredibly important and intimate topic. So grab your notebook, grab your heart. We're going to talk about the principles of sacred intimacy, touch of Tantra, which is all about sacred sexuality. And it's one of the forms that we use to communicate with any other human being. And so the quality of your relationship often depends on the quality of your intimacy. And I used to think, and then I'll have Candace say how she got on this journey, but I grew up thinking that there are the people that have the skills, that are the great lovers, the Don Juans, all of those people. And then there's the rest of us. And I was part of the rest of us. I was not part of the great lover group. In fact, sharing very openly, very vulnerably. And by the way, this intends to be a PG talk, but you can definitely learn a lot to take to the bedroom. But my first real love, I lasted, in making love with her, I lasted probably maybe optimistically 2 minutes. And I probably spent the next 20 years trying to make up for those 2 minutes, feeling bad about myself. And there are very few places for the masculine to go like, God, you know what? I don't feel like I'm good in bed. I don't know how to learn these skills. I don't know how to last longer. I don't know how to control myself. I don't know how to give my partner pleasure. There's so much that I didn't know. And if this conversation is awkward and uncomfortable for you, it's probably the exact place you need to be. I know it was awkward and uncomfortable for me, and I avoided that conversation for about 20 years till I stumbled on somebody named Charles Muir, and he taught Tantra and Sacred Sexuality. And I learned from him. I took a course, and then I waited another 5 years. So it was like 25 years before I actually took a 10-day course and decided, you know what? Either I'm going to become a monk or a master. I'm going to understand sexuality and sensuality, how to pleasure myself, how to pleasure my partner. I'm going to take some of the mystery out of it. And that's how I got to where I am today. A lot of you know me, some of you don't. I am a relationship and intimacy coach and have been for about 20 to 25 years. And I work with couples all around the world. And one of the 7 core issues couples want to work on is better intimacy. And that's emotional intimacy, that's physical intimacy like touch, and that's sexual intimacy. So Candace, how did you end up on this journey to become someone who really helps people understand sacred sexuality?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, my first teacher was Charles Muir as well. About 8 years ago, I really dove into trying to heal myself sexually. And from there, like, I took so many trainings and I have a deep passion for, I've just seen so much wounding, and, even your share there. I've just heard that so many times. And the reality that there is no sex education. So essentially, one of the roles I hold in the world is to be a tantric goddess, is to hold safe, sacred space for us to discover ourselves and parts of ourselves that maybe we haven't yet even mentioned.
Yeah, if you think about it, what I want to do is normalize this conversation. If you think about it, if you were playing golf and you wanted to improve golf, what did you get? You get a golf coach, you get a trainer, you go work out, you read books, you study it. If you want to get better at art, if you want to get better at business, if you want to get better at almost anything, you study it. And what happens for most people is they start with this belief that they should be born knowing what to do in the bedroom, and end up with so much shame and confusion and embarrassment, so they don't ask, they don't know where to go. So I'm going to ask people, I'm going to bring up a visual here, and let's see if I can get it even a little bit bigger. But what I want people to do is find themselves on this visual, and I'm going to describe it to you, Candace, so you can see it in your mind's eye. But it's a pyramid, and on the far left side, when you think about your love life, your sex life, at the bottom level is surviving. It's sexless, it's scared, hiding, it's non-existent. It might be 0 to 3 times a year. The next level up is settling, and this is something that I call duty and sad sex, where you endure it rather than enjoy it. And this is where there's boredom in the bedroom. So Candace, there's 4 different levels: surviving, settling, comfortable, and electrifying. The comfortable, I'm calling enjoyable, good, not great. It's sort of okay, ho-hum. And maybe it's 2 to 3 times a month. And then electrifying is great and often. And this is the, oh my God, please do that again. And that could be 2 times a week to 7 times a week. And what I want to do is ask people, now you don't have to put in where you are, but I deal with people all the time that start at the bottom, that are at 0 to 3 times a year, and help them work their way up to electrifying. So, Candace, anything you want to say about either surviving, settling, comfortable, or electrifying?
I feel like it could be a little different for a couple versus a single person. And right now, as a single person, I'm thinking about it, and that the settling piece, like right now, my sex life with other people, as far as especially intercourse or really intense physical sexual activity versus energetic, spiritual, emotional, hasn't been that large. But my sex life as a whole, and with myself, and in the different ways it does exist, is electrifying. And I've been in a place of settling, oh, just to have it, and it doesn't feel good. And I'm so grateful that I don't do that anymore.
So there, all right, I'm going to back up a tiny bit, and I'm going to bring a different screen up. I want to talk to people about what Candace just said, and this is my model of working with couples. I've been working with couples for almost over 25 years. And Candace, I'm bringing up the 3 circles: heart set, mindset, skill set. Why I bring this up is when I work with couples, we look at the heart set and help them become better friends, better partners, better lovers, and go from having their needs feel like a burden to feel precious. The next one is your skill set. And if you improve your skill sets, you become a better lover in every aspect of it. You become a better physical, intimate lover. You become a better listener. You become a better person every way, shape, and form. What I wanted to bounce to, because Candace just said something that's so interesting and critical, is the mindset. We have something called our ROS, our relationship operating system, and it's made up of our habits, patterns, and beliefs. And these hugely impact your love life, your sex life. And so when Candace, you were saying, I have a better love life with myself, I'm sure that some people that triggered something in different people, like, oh my God, I feel shame and embarrassment. I shouldn't want to please myself. I should be with another person. All like a whole list of stories that could come up around that versus, and I'm going to hand it to you in a second, versus like at some levels, all of us are different in what we want and don't want in the bedroom. And the better we know our bodies and what gives us pleasure, the more likely we are to be able to teach our lovers. And if we feel so much shame we can't pleasure ourselves, it's going to be hard to let pleasure in from others. So that's kind of a setup there. What can you say about that?
The first thing I definitely want to speak into, like you said, is that potential trigger point. And anyone who may have had the experience of settling, you know, we change and we grow and we evolve. And, my needs and my capacity to get my needs met and the ways in which I got my needs met at different times in my life based on my skill set and my heart set were of that. Did I know I was settling at the time? Was it a conscious choice? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But just really taking, if we can celebrate all of those steps as growth, in our journey in discovering ourselves, versus shaming ourselves.
Yeah, and what I want to get I'm going to dive into a little bit about the differences between men and women in a second. And what I want you to think about, and this is especially if you are currently in a couple, but if you haven't mastered this, it's not mastering it is not only doing yourself a favor, but it's helping do your partner a favor. They chose you. So unless you're in an open relationship or polyamorous or all the rest of it, they chose to be with you and you are their only lover right now. So you could use that and go, well, I don't have to get better because there's no competition. Or you could use that and say, you know what? They chose me. I want to make that choice be the best choice they ever made. So I'm going to learn everything I can about being a great lover, a great partner, a great friend in the relationship. And I'm going to dive into, before we get into what to do, I'm going to talk about 4 things that get in the way of having, oh my God, please do that again. No more boredom in the bedroom. Love life. So here we go. And if you've got questions, I see comments here. Hello, beautiful people. Great to see you. Great to see you too. Thank you. Hi. And I'd love to hear where you're checking in from around the world. That would be awesome. And this is interactive. So Candace and I are having a conversation, but we want to have the conversation with you too. So Candace, the 4 big ones that I talked about, and I got here. Number 1, negative self-talk, feelings, shame, guilt, embarrassment, and confusion. That's number 1. Number 2, pain from the past, trauma, drama, abuse. And an awful lot of women have that, and a remarkable amount of men have that also. Number 3 is my partner doesn't know how to please me, and often I don't know how to ask them or teach them how to please me. And that goes back to the beginning of feeling guilt, shame, and embarrassment for actually asking for what we want. I don't know how to please my partner, and they don't know how to ask me or teach me how to please them. And in the center of it all is we can't talk about it. So Candace, what do you have to say? We'll start with number one, negative self-talk, feelings of shame, guilt, embarrassment, and confusion.
Mm. It's definitely one of those ones that on some level, in some way, especially in intimate, deep relationships, stuff comes up. I feel like we meet people, uh, like like you say, like what's the point of getting a relationship? To get our needs met. And sometimes unconsciously, like we're craving for something. And so it's very natural that these people that you choose to relate to may trigger insecurities. So it's something I'm aware of and I try to bring to the light. So I'm not like, yeah, it feels better when I just talk about it with them.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And by the way, I'd love anybody saying on a scale of 1 to 10, where are they in their relationship? Well, I'll say it this a different way. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being I can talk before, during, and after lovemaking about what I want, what I don't want, make clear requests. So level 10, no problem. I could be leading this course. Level 1, I can't talk about it even if I got my eyes closed. So cool. All right. So we'll get people's response. And hi, Marilyn from Dallas, Texas. Anyone here? Anyone else here from Dallas? The Texans have arrived. The Texans are in the house. I used to live in Austin. All right. Number 2, pain points, trauma, drama, and abuse. How does that get in the way of having a great life, sex life, love life? And I'll lead that by just saying one of the people I've studied a little bit is Carolyn Mays. I hope I'm saying her right, the name right. But one thing Carolyn said is we all get wounded. Some of us get bitter. Some of us get better. We've all gone through trauma, drama, and some form of abuse in the world of sex and sexuality. At least most people have. The question is, do you get bitter or do you get better? Any comments on that one?
This is essentially how I found Tantra and why I was brought to it. For me, one of the essences of Tantra was going into those deep, open, vulnerable, intimate pleasure points to work on those deep, vulnerable, traumatic pain points. There's a magic. Tantra essentially means to weave. That's what it means in the translation from Sanskrit. So you're weaving the pain and the pleasure to create something new. I definitely I have an extensive history of trauma, and there was a time in my life up until at least I was 25, something. I could not enjoy being in this body. There's no pleasure happening in here. I was shut down. It was not safe. Yeah.
Yeah, see, and that actually, thank you for saying that. That's one of the key things there. It becomes not safe. And to have one of the things about pleasure, it's one of the intense vulnerabilities, being able to allow yourself to experience this. So that was number 2. Number 2 was trauma, drama, and abuse. Number 3 of the 4 core reasons we don't have the love life we want is my partner doesn't know how to please me. Now, I was that partner. I was, God, it's so embarrassing even to talk about, but I was somebody, I didn't understand a woman's body and how to touch them and how to please them and how to give them pleasure. And my partners early on didn't know how to teach me. So what's been your world on my partner doesn't know how to please me? And are people relating to this? You don't have to say this is me, but can you relate? If you can just go, yes, I can relate, or whatever you're getting from this, that helps us who are being so vulnerable here understand that we're connecting to something out there. So Candace, anything about my partner doesn't know how to please me?
I think, in the beginning of trying to heal my trauma and realizing that something was up and I should be feeling pleasure, I think I ran this story for a bit. They just don't know. And on one level, there was some reality because we just don't know. But I didn't realize that I had some responsibility there. And I had to know myself and I had to communicate. It took me a little while to figure that out. And, still sometimes I slip up. And it really depends on the connection. I've definitely noticed I am of the non-monogamous world. And some relations, I can be way more open. And some I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the things, like at the center of this, is we can't talk about it. And it's like learning how to talk about it. Being courageously intimate, asking for what you want and don't want in the bedroom. So number 4, and then we're going to give you some specific how-to tips here. Number 4, I don't know how to please my partner. And that there's a lot of shame, embarrassment, and confusion around that. You can get a lot of information on, especially right now, Google. And, I have a video that I have on Tantra and Sacred Sexuality. It's up on YouTube, been seen over 6,100,000 times. So there is information out there. But there also needs to be some sort of agreement where you show up in a mindset of curiosity to learn about this person and what gives them pleasure and what doesn't give them pleasure. So anything about that one before we bounce into some of the principles?
Yeah, I feel like the getting some tools, some of this stuff, when we're in that space is just so far-fetched, like thinking about talking about this stuff. And for me, I have a lot of sexual confidence, but I have seen, and I've gotten so many calls even in just the last week with men calling me, and the core reason was they needed help with their sexual confidence. They just don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, women have more moving parts than men do, and we haven't really been taught how to bring them pleasure. And the challenge is how to create a dialogue, a conversation in the middle of it that's not a shaming conversation. It's one where you're actually learning how to talk about it. And somebody's saying here, I found the more comfortable and knowledgeable I become about what I like, the more comfortable and confident I become to discuss these beautiful nuances with my partner. Yes, absolutely. And there's some great tools out there. Like one of the tools I'm going to talk about very briefly tonight, but when it comes to communication, there are the 5 love languages. And when it comes to the bedroom, there are the 5 erotic blueprints. So the 5 love languages: touch, talk, time, gifts, acts of service. Those are different ways you communicate love. Then maybe at the end of this, we'll talk about the 5 erotic blueprints. So Candace, I'm bringing up a triangle here, and I call it Let's: love, energy, technique, and spirit. And I'm going to start with love. In the process of making love, how does love show up? And I've got a list here. And just so the people that I'm communicating it to Candace can't see my slides and she's blind. So that's why we have this ongoing dialogue. If anybody goes, why is he explaining what's right there? Because that helps. All right. So love, it's the act of love, not the feeling of love. So how do I show a partner that I love them? Presence, focus, attention, connection, eye contact. I make them a priority. I put down my cell phone. I look at them. So what are some ways for you, Candace, you are letting the person in front of you know that you love them? What are some activities or ways of being that show love?
So actually, like what I'm wearing right now, like I love to dress up, and I love showing up as art and learning about what are the things that excite, what are their favorite colors, what are their favorite foods, what are the things they really need to hear. And I write little love notes around and surprise, like my pockets on the walls, and creating sacred time and ceremony and ritual.
So it sounds like you really enter their world. So you're actively entering their world.
Yeah.
So the next one, so it's LETS. So love, the next one is energy. And if you think about it, the typical man, and if you go to Google, you can get your own research on here, but makes love sort of in a bell curve. Arouse, climax, go to sleep. Now, let me see if I can get that all on here. Nope. My writing is way too big, so there we go. Sleep. Now, according to Google, the average man climaxes in about 3.5 to 5 minutes. The average female climaxes in 23 to 25 minutes. So you can see that there is a huge gap between these two. And now I work with same-sex couples. I work with a wide variety of couples, but this is especially important for a masculine feminine couple to deal with, because if the woman is going to achieve orgasm and have pleasure, the man is got to do something more than 3 minutes. And hopefully this is making sense to people. So the feminine, rather than it being a bell curve like the masculine here, the feminine is more of a wave, and it goes up and down and up and down. Anything you want to say on that, Candace? And I'll come back to it, my side, in a second.
Yeah, I mean, it just it makes me think of certain parameters and boundaries I have around working with clients, and the need for a long time to give ourselves that time to really go into the body. It takes more time um, to expand that 3 minutes. Like that 3 minutes, like that doesn't have to be your reality. There is difference. But you have to be patient and explore and get creative.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I'm going to give, I have a background in quality control. Like I learned, so how did I get on this journey? I've studied with Tony Robbins and a guy named Marshall Thurber, who studied with Dr. Deming. Deming is a guy who taught the Japanese about quality and productivity. It has nothing to do with love life, sex life, relationship. It has everything to do with systems and systems thinking. So I have a background of, if I can't make a chart, a flow chart, a diagram of it, I don't really understand it. So here's the way I look at it after learning about especially the male orgasm. What an orgasm is a release of energy. When there's too much energy in a given area, it gets released. So there's one of two things we can do. We can have our orgasm and release it, or we can learn how to expand the container. I know this is an abstract thought at first, but expand the container for the male by learning how to breathe and move your body, and to start going in a wave instead of going right for a climax. And you start to consciously ask your partner, like, if on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being climax, level 7 is about the point of no return, where a guy's like, oh no, I'm going for it. What you learn to do is stop at a level 5 and just breathe with your partner and slow it all down. So you're learning how to control whether or not, or when or not, you orgasm. Candace, it says, Candace mentioned connections. This is super relevant to timing and support of one another's pleasure. Yeah, it totally is. How connected? Can you have eyes open? That's another thing here when we're going to talk about it. Can you look in each other's eyes, or do you get too uncomfortable? Can you be present with each other? Can you hold your hand on each other's hearts and slow down? And this part of what this is to move lovemaking from a destination, like how quickly can we get to orgasm and get done and get to sleep, to how can we get this on a journey to discover how to pleasure each other. Go ahead, Candace. Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, so that scale that you just mentioned is very important. I teach all my clients that. And knowing your own scale and working with your partner, if you don't know your scale, teaching them your scale. Some people's 5, are 5'10". Some people are 7'10". Some people are 3'10". You know what I mean? So like, and it may take some time. And one of the ways I like to think of the difference of just going in to go out is we're taking the time to create an ejaculation. And when you're creating the ejaculation, you're infusing and breathing that magic into yourself, into the entirety of you. So while you're doing that, you're also giving it time to gather, because that is a real release. And you can release so much more emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, sexually, if you took that time to let it gather.
It says, what happened to your show just stopped. I don't know what happened to the show. It's, as far as I know, we're still going. And somebody else said, what are the 5 erotic blueprints? We will get to the erotic blueprints in a minute. So this is my, stay with us, coming attraction. So we started with, this is the LETS triangle, LETS, love, energy. And the energy is the awakening, moving, managing, and sharing of energy. We just talked about that. The T stands for technique. And you'll notice technique is the 3rd on the list. It's not the 1st on the list. It is not the most important thing. Love is the most important. Energy is the next. Technique, when I talk about technique, it's how do we use our touch, our sounding, our noise, our conversation, do we make noise? Are we ashamed of making noise? How do we use our breath, positions, and how do we give feedback? So do you want to take any one of those on, and we'll touch, sound, breath, positions, or feedback?
I think what I really want to speak into is I recently had the beautiful gift of relating to somebody who was paralyzed from right below the nipple down and had not experienced erection and sensation in 20 years since being paralyzed. And because I take the time to really bring alive the senses, to hone in on the sound and the breathing and the movement, like he woke up. Like it's there's so many sexual challenges. Like a lot of people that come to me with PE
Hold on, you wait, Candace, you broke up there for a second. I heard
Yep.
so many, and then it broke up.
So many people come to me with PE or ED, and I will tell them, like, just so you know, like, when I give you the tools and teach you the stuff, you're not going to have that. Like, it's going to disappear. Because a lot of the time it's not really real. It's just we don't know how to work with our energy.
So the important thing here, like, so Candace said a lot in that,
Yeah.
and most of you probably are not paralyzed from the nipples down or whatever it was. But it's like, wow, if working with somebody who's in that position can make that big a difference, just think what you can do. Just think what you can do with these same tools and a body that got all of its senses. You can, if you decide to. These are things that can be learned. Yes, there are probably some people who were great in relationships naturally and great lovers like Don Juan. I was not either of those. I was relationship handicapped and clumsy, awkward, and really, I had a hard time in bed, embarrassed and ashamed, and didn't know who to ask and didn't know what to do. And so these are learnable skills. So I want to talk about I think for me, the one I want to talk about, and Candace, you can jump in on any others, but the feedback loop, because this one is so critical to your relationship, because you are the only one who knows what feels good for you inside and out. And how do you give your partner feedback? Are you the mummy where you lie still and then wait till an orgasm washes over you? Or are you somebody that is interacting, that's saying something, letting your partner know that feels really good? And you can let them know by saying that feels really good, or you can let them know by your breathing, by your sounding, by your movement. It's let your body move, let your breath move, let yourself sound. Oh my God, that's so good. Do that more. And if on the other side, this is another critical thing. So we're in the feedback loop here, the feedback cycle. It's a very delicate and vulnerable place for people to be. So when you're offering feedback, rather than say, don't do that, you're doing that wrong, that will shut your partner down in a heartbeat. Let them know, can you touch me softer there? That really turns me on. Can you touch me here? Because I really like that. Can you use your hand in a different way? So it's like, how do you, Candace, get this feedback cycle going with people?
Mm. I'm stuck on this, thinking of being with this lover. I think the feedback loop is essentially what helped him wake up. As I was touching him and his wands, or anywhere he couldn't feel, I would verbally articulate exactly what I was doing and what it felt like, and how much I enjoyed it. And I could tell and feel like he could feel it through my words, through my enjoyment of it, through my pleasure. Like, we can infuse other people with our pleasure. Like, that's a big thing. And sounding, one of the things I like to say is, nobody watches porn on mute by choice. Like, come on, we all like to hear it.
Thank you. Yes, that makes sense, Candace. So yeah, that makes total sense. I'm gonna there's two things left for me to do here. One, I want to give the 5 erotic blueprints. And I don't know, are you familiar with these? I'm sure once I say them, you're familiar with them. Okay. So number 1 is the energetic. By the way, I was once told if you don't know how to spell a word in 3 or 4 different ways, you're not being creative. So you're going to see some creative spelling here. Energetic. I know I spelled it wrong, but an energetic. And you want to do this one or the next one? Let me just say what they are real quick. And then, Candace, you can pick which ones you want to talk about. The energetic. Whoops. The second one is the sensual. And by the way, I didn't come up with these. A woman named Jaya, who's somebody I know, came up with these, and they just really resonated with me. The sexual. So there's the energetic, the sensual, the sexual. Number 4 is the kinky. And number 5 is the shapeshifter. And what a shapeshifter is they can do all 5 of these. So you want to talk about, can you talk about the energetic and then I'll go to the sensual?
Sure, yeah. So I think, especially as a blind person and a highly sensitive person, I'm very sensitive to energy. And some of the most juiciest sexual experiences I've had, the most like enlivening, healing, transformative, were energetic. Sometimes involved absolutely no physical contact. And I would still reach my highest peaks and explode. And like, you can penetrate one another with your energy. Like, we've all felt someone looking at us and we didn't like it, or we did. That's energy.
So that's the energetic. And by the way, we all have all 5 of these, or at least most of us do. The next one is the sensual. And the sensual is focused much more on the 5 senses: touch, smells, taste, sound. So you're like, the sheets are clean. It's really weird. Candace just has a cat there. I have a cat that just jumped up in my lap in the middle of this whole thing. My cat just is right here. They are energetic beings. So the sensual is the person, they want it all set up in advance. You know, you have chocolates, you do a tub, you have everything there for the sensual. So the sexual, and then we can bounce to the kinky next, and I'll ask you if you've got any ideas on that, just as a description. But the sexual is, so the energetic is all about the energy. The sensual is, a lot of it is about the foreplay, about getting ready to make love and the touch and the whole preparation. The sexual is, forget foreplay, we should be having sex. It's like, jump right to it. Now you can see why people with different erotic blueprints can collide with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would be a nondescript description of the kinky?
Did you say non-descriptive?
Yes, without diving deeply into it, but I want to.
Yeah. On a basic level, you know, I feel like it's a creative way of exploring every one of these other things. To me, kink for some is, I feel like we're all looking to get emotional, psychological needs met through sexual stuff, especially kink. So sometimes if we can't get to a certain place, kink can help us get there. with different tools and role play and implementations. Yeah, there's a lot of places to go there.
Yeah, I'll be a little more power plays. It can be about surrender. It can be about domination and submission, and you can act out a lot of things that are really important to you in a super safe space if you have clear permission and agreements. What makes kink safe, or can make it safe, is having clear permission and agreements. And that actually goes throughout all of it. It's like, especially for guys, asking a woman permission to touch her body, to enter her, to be sensual. It's still her body. It's still about asking permission. And then stretching, becoming uncomfortable, asking, do you want to be tied to the bed and spanked? Or, do you want to, what is it that you want, so that you can express it? Now, the challenge here is, how do we communicate? Because the hub of all of this is communication. And a lot of times what happens is, when we have fear and embarrassment and we feel uncomfortable, we go to attacking. Like, that's bad, stupid, wrong, we shouldn't do that, versus I'm scared and uncomfortable. So anything on that, Candace?
Yeah, and that's where I feel like, kink and safe, sacred containers. Like, I've had so many memorable moments in helping people rid of the shame of stories and fantasies and fetishes that they never felt safe anywhere else. And just to witness the freedom, and it will impact your entire life. Like, if there is something you want really bad, but you're not allowing yourself to have it, especially sexually, it will impact the rest of your life. It's a form of self-denial.
Yeah, and I'm going to be wrong on the dates that I'm about to give. I believe it was 1884 when women were given the right to own properties. I don't remember exactly when women were given the right to vote. I think it was in the 1920s, something like that. Like I said, I'm going to be wrong about it, but it's not the important thing. 1960s, I think, is when birth control came in. So owning property is the ability to build wealth and have prosperity. The right to vote is about power. The right for birth control is about safety and procreation. And what I think the last feminine revolution is about the right to have pleasure, and to own your pleasure, and to not be ashamed or embarrassed. And I think it's for men too, not just for women, but I think that this is what we're looking at, is the next evolution, is to be able to ask for what you want and need in the bedroom and in life. So, that was a lot to cover there. And I want to say, I'm going to just give one tiny touch on communication, then we're going to look at what next steps. What I want people to think about is, when you touch somebody, when you're making love, when you're touching them, what do you want to communicate? Do you want to say, I love you? Or do you want to say, I'm impatient, could we hurry up and get this done? So when we're communicating from one of three places. We're communicating from our head, our heart, or our hurt. And when we're in our head, we're in the world of logic, reason, thinking, who's right, who's wrong, all the rest of that. When we're in our heart, which tends to be where we want to communicate from around sex and sexuality, it's about feelings. It's about needs, what feels good, what doesn't. If we're in our hurt, and this is if we haven't healed our trauma and drama of the past, it's very easy in the process of making love to end up getting triggered, to end up back in the area of loss. And all of a sudden your partner feels they've gone from feeling like the ally to feeling like the enemy.
Mm.
So the more that we can heal ourselves, the more time we're going to spend in love versus our head or our hurt. Anything on that?
Yeah. So like some of us may be healing forever. And I think it's important to know the triggers
Yep.
and educate our partners of the triggers. For me, say around intercourse, especially, I basically have just certain parameters that I know need to be met. If they're not met, I will be heavily triggered. And I did it many times before I learned that it was a no-no for me, that I had certain things that needed to happen in order for me to feel safe to go there. People basically like not being emotionally available afterwards is probably the big key trigger in that I'm speaking of. But even in my past, like I have an extensive history of trauma. I used to get triggered by cowboy hats. I got triggered by certain colors, certain sounds, the sound of an ambulance. You know, it can be challenging sometimes.
Yeah.
So knowing oneself and educating our partners.
Yep.
Yeah.
And one of the people here said at a basic level, I think establishing sexuality as sacred and being in agreement about this has been really helpful to create calm and comfort during sexual experiences. And the other thing that is not in there, but is implicit in there, is safety. Because especially for the feminine, it's an incredibly vulnerable, beautiful act to do that, to open our bodies. So I would love to hear from some people, what did you get as we're wrapping this up? What did you get from tonight's talk? And there was some other stuff that I wanted to cover. I'm going to cover some other time. Candace is going to have another show that we're going to talk about. And in that show, I'll probably go through these 5 principles. So this is a teaser. If you're really quick, you can take a picture of this and look at it later. But I'm going to talk about delicious vulnerability, sweet surrender, courageous intimacy, selfish generosity, and juicy spirituality, and how all those 5 things impact your love life. So
Yeah. And let us know, I like what you got out of this, as well as what you'd like to hear. Not this Friday, but the following Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for part 2 of this exploration.
Yeah.
We'll have another intimacy coach with us too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my video on Tantra and Sacred Sexuality has been seen at this point 6,199,000 times as of today. It went up. That started from April 2013 is when I put it up there, and it in those amount of years, 6 million views. So it's decision time. The decision is here. Number 1, you have 3 options. You can do nothing, ignore, and hope that your love life and your sex life get better. You can do it yourself, which is like what I tried to do for 20 some years. I said, I'm going to figure it out. And I need to be gentle with myself, but it was one of the most foolish things I've done. And somebody's saying bye for now. Bye-bye. You can do it with help, learn and grow, and find yourself a coach. Charles Muir, Candace, myself, find somebody that can help coach you in this world. And here's one next step. Join the Courageous Love Show Facebook group. This is the group. This is the Courageous Love Show you're on right now. Every week, I do 2 shows, Thursday nights and Sunday afternoon. Go join the group. Look at all the past issues, all the past videos that have been gone up there. The next thing you can do, and I'll tell you how to do that in a second, is you can get a hold of me and ask for the Taste of Tantra, 7 Sacred Sensual Secrets to Please Your Partner. It is a 6-page special report. It's a PDF. I will ship that to you. On Facebook, I'll just give you the link. So that's the second thing. So join the Facebook group, get the special report, or number 3, set up a breakthrough session with me and help your relationship go from crisis, conflict, stuck in a rut, all the way up to great. And I work with couples around the world in those 3 areas, helping change their heart set, their mindset, their skill set. Here is the link. If you want to get a hold of me, that's how you do it. And it's long. I won't even read it out, or you can just get a hold of me, Paul Sterling, on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find. You can find me there. Candace, how do people find you?
Temple of Frolic. You can usually find me anywhere. My website's Temple of Frolic, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. And yeah, our show is streamed on Love Coach Academy and Temple of Frolic page. So yeah.
All right, cool. And the direction we are moving is about consent, being firm with what we want, need, no shame in the bedroom. Women take so much longer, lots of foreplay and finesse. And that was just feedback from one of the people. So thank you, everybody, for sharing in this vulnerable, courageous conversation. This is only the beginning. It is one of the key forms that we communicate with each other. If you have a great intimate life and great communication, you have the foundations for a great relationship. Thank you, Candace. Thank you, everybody. You can share this video or the replay with anybody you want. Just put their name down at the bottom and tell them to watch the replay. All right.
And you can still comment, even if you're watching the replay, still chime in because we will see it.
Absolutely. Ciao, everybody.